Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and I appreciate you being here. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the financial impacts that I've noticed on my life based on the fact that I'm an American living abroad. If you're new here, I've been living in Dubai for about 4 years. Previous to that, I spent about 8 years in Australia. So in total, I've got about 12 years of experience living in a foreign country. There are a lot of things that impact your finances differently being abroad versus being in your home country. So I figured I'd touch on some of the bigger ones. Some of them are things that quite literally affect my net worth. Some of them are more based on like mindset around money and also just mental load based on managing your finances. So the first one I'm going to talk about is income. I have these separated into different lists, but it's hard to talk about income without talking about your cost of living. And the reason I say that is because both of those things tend to match each other. When I was in Australia, I noticed that salaries in general are just a lot higher than what you would expect to see in the US. So based on the job that I was doing, I was making a great income. I'd see a lot of money coming in, but I'd also see so much money going out. My cost of living was much higher there than pretty much anywhere else I could have seen in the States. So while I saw a lot of money coming in, I saw a lot of money going out as well. And to be honest, when you're seeing a lot more money coming in, it's so easy to adjust to that lifestyle creep. Just like anywhere else, there's always temptation to improve your lifestyle. So because you have a little bit more money that you're sitting on, you might go out and spend a little bit more money on something that you want versus something that you necessarily need. And I don't think lifestyle creep is inherently a bad thing, but it is something that you need to be mindful of and to be cognizant of and notice when you're spending the extra money or when you're upgrading or when you're improving your quality of life. Another thing to consider when we're talking about income is the currency. So obviously I am living in Dubai. I am paid in the local currency here, which is Emirati dirham. And I track my net worth based on dollars because that is where I'm from. I manage my finances in both currencies, but my net worth I track on dollars. So because I'm being paid in dirhams, but I'm tracking in dollars, that salary that I receive every single month is the same, but it might come up a little bit different on paper because of the conversion rate. So whether it's income or it's your cost of living, when you're talking about foreign currencies, you have to know that things will fluctuate a little bit when you're trying to convert things. It's one of the challenges of managing your finances when you're dealing with multiple currencies. And then back on the cost of living side of things, one of the things you really need to think about when you are moving to a new country, especially when you're new, of course, is what you're going to do when you arrive. So moving anywhere is expensive. When I moved to both of these countries, I didn't have a job lined up, so you need to make sure that you have a buffer and you're comfortable spending your savings in order to make yourself settled, in order to get yourself on the right track in that country financially. The next one I want to talk about is kind of financial basics. So it's your investment, it's your banking, it's, your actual accounts, the actual bread and butter of things. So like I mentioned, I do manage my money both in Emirati dirhams and US dollars. So what happens for me is I get paid my salary into my UAE account, my Dubai account. From there, I send money back to the States. It's a process, it takes a couple of days. There's fees on both sides. So I get charged a fee here in my Dubai account. I also get charged a wire fee on my receiving account. So it gets expensive. I do this once a month in order to keep up with my financial goals that I'm tracking through in the States. But wire fees and transfer fees is definitely something that you need to consider if you're going to be sending money back and forth. Part of the reason why I am sending money back home is because of my retirement account. So I have a Roth IRA that I invest in the States because I do have earned income. And the reason I'm investing in that account specifically is because I don't have a retirement account here. So when you are moving to a new country, some countries will have optional retirement accounts, some will have mandatory retirement accounts, and some will have nothing at all. So for example, when I was in Australia, they have something that's called superannuation, and your employer makes a contribution to that either every month or every time you get paid, but it is a mandatory thing over there. But then when I left, instead of investing that into my retirement, I put that into my savings in order to maintain myself in the transition between countries. And then now here in Dubai, I don't have a retirement account that's available to me. So I feel like your investments can be really interrupted by moving abroad. They can be halted. If you've been investing in a 401k account for the last 3 years and then you stop, you still have that there, but there's no more money going into it. So it becomes very self-managed. Even if you have something like a superannuation account, you still need to know what you're going to do with it once you leave that country. unless you're in that country for permanent and you're never leaving. Then you can use it as an actual retirement account when you retire there. But I find most people that move abroad, it's temporary. So you don't know where you're going to be in the future, and eventually you're going to have to transfer those funds into the appropriate account. The next one I also learned in the last couple of years is about your credit score. So when I left the States, I was only 22. I didn't really have much of a credit score. I did have student loans that I was repaying that I will touch on in a second. But I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have any personal loans. To be honest, I had never checked my credit. I have no idea what it would have been at that stage in time. But because I purchased a car over here, and because I'm considering at some point purchasing property here in Dubai, I started looking into the credit system. So a couple of years ago, I did open a US credit card. I have paid off my student loans. So my credit in the States is pretty good, and I can actively check it. So that's like one check done. But the credit system here in Dubai is entirely different. So although they do have access to certain things, like they need my social security number in order to open an account here, it's not the same. It doesn't translate, it doesn't convert. So I need to start from scratch over here. So when I opened a credit card, I made sure I was on top of that. I do have a car loan, like I said. And along the same lines, when you have a loan, it's important that you are able to pay that off before you leave the country. So because I have a car loan, I am either tied to be here for the remaining time of the loan, or when I want to leave the country, I need to be able to pay that loan off. Most places will not allow payments from an international bank account. So for example, if I have this car loan here and I go to the US, I still have this car loan. They won't accept payments from my US account. It has to be done and sorted here. Conversely though, I did have to pay my student loans while I was abroad. So when I was in Australia, that is when my deferment period stopped and I had to start making payments. So that's when I realized about the transfer fees, the wire fees, all of that, because I started having to send money home. That is something that doesn't stop. Yes, you could do deferment or whatever it's called in order to put your payments on hold, but you're still expected to pay them. So even if you leave the country, your student loans will never leave you. The next topic is something that was hard learned for me, and that is taxes. This is something that in hindsight is so obvious, but Uncle Sam is always going to get his money. So even when you're living abroad, you must file your US taxes. For me, I didn't know that at first. So there were many years where I was non-compliant. I am all caught up now. The IRS is not after me, but there were many years that I wasn't filing because I didn't know that I had to. So especially in Australia, where I am paying Australian taxes on my Australian wage, it seemed like an extra step. It seemed like, why would I have to when I'm not living there? But yes, you do always have to file your US taxes, and you might also be paying taxes in the country that you're living in. So you need to start to learn the tax code, not necessarily code, but the general tax information for the country that you're moving to. I was able to file my own Australian taxes online. They made it very easy. Here in Dubai, we don't have income taxes, so there's no filing system that I need to follow each year. So it's one less thing to think about here in Dubai, but it depends on where you are, and it really varies drastically depending on the country that you're in. But the one thing that doesn't change drastically is always file for your US taxes. And then the last topic that I've considered is more kind of lifestyle ideas. For me, in my adulthood, I've always kind of felt like I've been on this forced minimalism lifestyle, because always in the back of my mind, I know I'm not going to be here forever. You know, this isn't my plan. I am on a visa over here. So the idea of having to pack everything I own into a suitcase, into a box, and ship it to another country is a massive task. Trust me, I've done it a couple of times. I don't really feel like doing it too often. It's a big job. So I don't buy that much. Having that in the back of my mind makes me think, is this worth packing it up and shipping it across the world or wherever I'm going to next? You also have to consider the cost of visiting home. So the US is a big place, right? So maybe, for example, I grew up in New York. My family now lives in North Carolina. So the cost of traveling there to and from is not cheap, right? There is a cost to it. But when you broaden that, and now when we talk about going from Dubai to North Carolina, the cost of going home and visiting is exponential. It's so much more expensive not only to get there, but like the amount of time that it takes, plus the amount of time that I need to be there in order for the trip to be worth it. Like, it's a 24-hour trip, so I don't want to be there for 3 days. So I need to make sure that I have enough time booked off of work. I have enough money saved up to purchase the flights and whatever else I need for the trip. It's a lot more expensive to visit home and to visit family. while you're over here as well, it's really tempting to start spending your money on experiences. I'm an experienced person. This is something that I value. So I will dedicate a certain amount of my budget into having experiences while I'm over here. But that mantra of, oh, I'm only here for so long, this is a once in a lifetime experience, is so easy to fall into. And you can't spend your money on everything. You can spend your money on anything, but you can't spend your money on everything. And there are so many experiences to have in a foreign country, in a different city, that it's easy and really tempting to say, yeah, why not? I'm only here for so long. And then the last little thing about lifestyle of living abroad is socializing. So the same as anywhere, it's important that you're socializing, but when you're new in a place, you don't have your people. It takes a while to figure out who those people are, to build your circle, to build your community. And I think this is even more true in Dubai, is that when you're meeting new people, it's so common to go out for dinner or go out for drinks, or even if you're meeting for coffee, like whatever you're doing has an expense attached to it. Me personally, I'm an introvert. I like to have people come to my house or to go to a friend's house and have dinner, host cocktail hour, or whatever it may be. This is really how I grew up as well. That's a lot of the socializing that we did in my house as a child. But if you don't have those people, or this is the first time you're meeting someone, you don't really want to invite them to your house. So going out and growing your circle can get expensive. If it's dinner, or if you're taking a class, or whatever it is, there's always that price tag on it. And while it's totally worth it, because it's so important that you have your social circle, you have your people, it is something to consider. And if you never leave where you're from, it's maybe something you've never considered before. So those are a few things that I've considered that are financially impacting my life as an American living abroad. I'm sure that there are so many more. I'd love to hear other opinions. I'd love to hear if you have any questions about what life is like living abroad. So if you do, I'd really appreciate it if you could drop a comment in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.